Hey everybody, how's it going? Marcos Villegas for Fight Up TV here with Bob Arum in Las Vegas ahead of Teofimo Lopez's fight against Jamaine Ortiz this Thursday at the Mandalay Bay. Bob, Teo making a lot of headlines lately with future fights, but this one in particular, though, he shouldn't I don't think he's overlooking Jamaine Ortiz, but a lot of people are seeing this as a 50-50 fight. Do you feel this is like a true 50-50 fight for Teo?
Yeah, it's going to be a very close, hard-fought fight. Ortiz is a hell of a fighter, but so is Teofimo. So, yeah, I think it's a very competitive fight.
You know, I know with Teo, in the past he's been a little bit inconsistent with, some of the things going on in his life. He seems to be in a happy place, a really stable place right now. You knowing the real particulars about how he is, how do you see him at this point compared to other camps and other fights?
I think that he is really matured, and he's in a very good place mentally, and he's not doing stupid things. So I think it's a sign of his maturity.
Teo recently in a podcast said he had a good heart-to-heart with you. We'll say like maybe a few months back at the Four Seasons. What do you remember from that meeting with him, and how did that meeting go? Because it seemed that he was not happy with a few things the last like maybe year and a half up to that point.
Because, again, we had a very good meeting, and true, he was unhappy about a couple of things, but they were such minor things, easily fixed, that, it didn't really require anybody to be upset. So he understands that. He knows that we're behind him at Top Rank, but he has to communicate with us. I mean, if he's upset with something, he wants something particularly, talk to us. And so he knows that. And he's getting along great with our social media people, and everybody in the company loves him. So it's all good.
He's signed on with you guys for a little bit longer now, right?
For about 3 more years, I think. Yeah. Probably longer than I have.
No, don't say that, Bob. But he did mention at some point in that interview about like the future of Top Rank. Has that been all in your mind about like what happens to the company after?
Well, the company's going to be great after. I mean, we have probably the most competent people or executives who do the work, and I explained that to him. I mean, yeah, I've been the figurehead, but, the nitty-gritty work, getting opponents and putting cards together, I don't do anymore. Our guys do it.
I bet you don't miss that stuff, huh?
No, I miss it, but I know at my age I'm not up to it, and do it, and at the same time live a productive life like I want to.
Yeah, very true. This boxing life takes a lot of time away from you. That's certainly for sure, Bob. Looking at Teo's trajectory, if he gets past Ortiz, what are the plans? Because I know it was being discussed, a Ryan Garcia fight for this particular date, but both fighters are now in different fights. Ryan potentially in a fight in April, but what's the trajectory for Teo if he wins?
Well, I thought we had a deal with Golden Boy to fight Ryan Garcia, but apparently they didn't have Ryan Garcia on board. But any of the top guys, Teofimo wants to fight, whether it's Haney or Garcia or Tank Davis, who is a little small, or Terence Crawford.
Yeah, I'll touch on Terence right now, but in terms of Ryan, was it accurate that what Teo said, that they presented him a percentage that he didn't like, and that was the reason why the Ryan Garcia fight fell through?
Who?
Teofimo said that the pay-per-view percentage presented to him for the Ryan Garcia fight, he wasn't on board with that. He didn't like that, and that's why the fight fell through.
No, that's not true at all. I mean, Oscar and Eric met with me at my house in L.A. We agreed on all of the basic major points, but we were able to produce Teofimo, and Golden Boy couldn't produce Garcia. It's as simple as that.
Man, that's a bummer. So it was that close, huh?
Well, it was close, but the promoters don't fight; the fighters fight.
Did they give you a reason as to why Ryan wasn't not willing to take it, but just they couldn't produce Ryan?
I'm not going to embarrass them to ask them for a reason. I know they didn't have him on board.
You know, Teo has made a lot of headlines calling out Terence Crawford. What do you make of that call? Because a lot of people were surprised that someone like Teo would call out someone like Crawford, who's been just on a mean streak pretty much his whole career.
Well, you know, Teo calling out Crawford, fine. If Crawford is interested in the fight, we'll get it done. If not, we won't get it done. But it's another option that Teo has given us, the fact that he would fight either Haney or Garcia or Crawford. So, again, we'll try to make one of those matches.
Do you personally like that fight for Teo, him going against Terence Crawford?
I think it's going to be a great fight. Does he win that fight against Crawford? I don't know. Crawford's a hell of a fighter, you know, as he proved with Spence. But Teo thinks that he can handle him. I'm not going to get in the ring with Crawford. Teo would.
Yeah, because a lot of people online just feel, given how Terence looked against Errol Spence, think that Teo wouldn't be competitive with Terence.
Terence is a great fighter, but the reason he looks so good with Errol Spence is because Spence can't fight a southpaw. Never could, never would. And to their credit, Crawford and Bomac realized that, and they didn't go right-handed at any time of the fight. They fought him southpaw from the opening bell till they knocked him out. Because Spence couldn't fight a southpaw. I mean, you just had to look at his record. He had two southpaws in all of his fights that were two marginal fighters. What did that tell us? That told us that, or told anybody, that Spence was reluctant to fight a southpaw. So he figured with Crawford, you know, only goes to southpaw usually after he fights right-handed for a while. But Crawford and Bomac are smart people, and they realize that to beat Spence, just go southpaw and stay southpaw. And that's what they did, and they knocked him out.
Yeah, I would love to see Teo and Terence Crawford. I think that's a huge fight, a phenomenal fight as well. But there are other big fights. I don't know. Would you agree? Like the biggest fight for Teo would be Ryan, or do you think it is a Terence or a Devin?
Well, you know, from the standpoint of boxing, a Crawford fight would be number one, a Haney fight 2, and a Garcia fight 3. But economically, because Garcia allegedly has this big social media following, probably the most remunerative fight would be against Garcia. But that doesn't mean it would be the best fight.
Saw a photo of you, Bob, with the other promoters. They called it a mini promoter summit. You know, how was it being in the same room with, you know, Loeffler, some of the PBC representatives, and the other promoters?
Yeah, we're good. We had. I commend Mauricio Suleiman for getting that meeting together. I mean, the WBC did a great job in doing that. We all had a lot of fun, and we discussed common issues. So I was all good.
Was there any solutions to those common issues? And I know a boxing fan would say, well, they all just got to work together to make the best fights.
It doesn't work that way with solutions. Obviously, everybody has a lot of the same problems. You know, the fighters wanting more and more money, and the pot of money not being as robust as it was in the past. And obviously, Showtime getting out of boxing is not good for anybody in the sport because it takes away a lot of revenue that Showtime produced.
Because of that meeting, are we going to see cards with your fighters and PBC fighters? Was any of that discussed at all, or smoothed over a bit to make a road to make those fights easier to make?
It doesn't work that way. I mean, if it's to PBC's advantage to have us do a fight with one of their fighters, we'll do it. If it's to our advantage to have them do a fight with one of our fighters, we'll do it. So again, it may be that when Showtime money was involved, they were, and realistically so, more reluctant to do a cross promotion. But there was always instances where we did, exchange fighters and do fights. And I think all that's going to happen is it's going to increase.
Yeah, because the biggest one that fans seem to want is Gervonta and Shakur. I know Shakur announced his retirement. A lot of people are not really taking it serious. He said he's serious about it and he only come out for big fights. I know you did an interview yesterday where you said, like, hey, you want to talk to him to see how he's doing. He's frustrated but not getting those fights. But can we get that fight with Gervonta and Shakur?
You got, as far as Shakur is concerned, he wants to do that fight. And it's not Heyman, it's not anybody. Gervonta Davis has to want to do that fight. Remember, he came off a big payday with Garcia, and even though it's a much more difficult fight, fighting Shakur doesn't give him the same payday. Because, again, Garcia inflates the numbers because of his social media presence. That's not a knock on Garcia, that's a compliment that he's able to bring that to the table. But again, it has nothing to do with fighters' ability or not inability. It is what it is.
There was a recent merger announced with ESPN, Fox, and Warner Brothers. How does that merger with that new sports streaming service that they're offering, if at all, coincide with what's going on with Top Rank on ESPN?
I don't think it seems to me, and I don't know what the nitty-gritties are, that ESPN and ESPN Plus will be available on this new platform because more and more people are cutting the cord, and so they are not paying money to the cable systems they can't get ESPN. Now they'll be able to get ESPN. So I think that's good. But I'm also buoyed by the fact that in the discussion that Disney had as to what they were contributing, they said combat sports, UFC, and Top Rank Boxing mentioned specifically. Well, I think that's good.
No, it's very good because I know, and you could tell me if it's accurate or not, that there's been people online saying that the contract is coming up and ESPN might be thinking maybe not going the direction of boxing.
No, first of all, that's not the case. Never was the case. And ESPN knows that a lot of entities have been reaching out to us for our product, but we've had a good relationship with ESPN, and I'm sure we'll be able to work out a new deal, I think a year and a half down the road.
In Saudi Arabia, undisputed fight, two of them announced with dates. The first one that came to mind was the Bivol and Beterbiev. That is official, Bob. You can confirm that is happening on June 1st?
Yeah, happening on June 1st. It's a terrific fight, and the only reason it was able to happen was because the Saudis financed it. But it's a tremendous fight. See, that's an example of a fight in normal times that you couldn't do because the fighters would want a lot of money for that fight, and they're entitled to it. But how is the promoter to get back the money that he promises? Impossible. I mean, and certainly as big a fight as it is, it's not a big pay-per-view fight. You have a Chechenian guy who lives in Canada and a Russian, So for a real dyed-in-the-wool boxing fan, it's a tremendous attraction. But for the public at large, it's an interesting fight, period. So you couldn't do it on pay-per-view. So it will be put on June 1st in Riyadh, and we've arranged with His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh that the fight will be distributed on free television by ESPN in the U.S. and Canada.
Man, that's great news. All right, that's awesome. Beterbiev's been on a streak like no other, all knockouts in his fights recently against Callum Smith, knocking him out. Do you see this as the most difficult fight in Artur Beterbiev's career, given a guy like Dmitry Bivol who has a signature win over Canelo Alvarez?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Bivol's a really good fighter. But, Beterbiev's been in with really good fighters, and he's managed to knock everybody out. Well, the people, I'm delighted that the public will be able to see this fight without anteing up any money. They'll be able to see it as if the fight were taking place in Montreal or Quebec or Las Vegas on ESPN. And I think that's really good for the sport. And I told His Excellency how much I appreciated it.
Yeah, it's not very often you get an undisputed fight for free on free TV. The other undisputed fight happening May 18th is Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk. Fury suffered that cut in training, but Bob, looking at the recovery time, that's a very tight window, isn't it, to reschedule?
It's not that deep a cut. It only took 11 stitches. Usually, if the cut's real deep, it's 20 or 30 stitches. So Tyson believes that it'll take him a month, and then he'll be able to go back into sparring.
But I would imagine if there is still a little redness, inflammation, scar tissue, it has to get pushed back, right? Because he doesn't want to fear like another cut.
I think that if there's scar tissue and so forth, if it's not going to affect him, yeah, he'll probably take the chance. Because look what happened with the Wallen fight. That was a real cut, a deep, deep cut, and didn't take him long to turn around and to fight Wilder.
We're seeing on that Beterbiev card, and I was going to ask this before, but Queensberry and Matchroom. I know Oscar's mentioned doing or wanting to do something similar with you, Top Rank against Golden Boy. Any movement at all? Can fans hope to see that one day?
I think that's the whole thing that's ridiculous. I mean, you don't put a card together like that. At least I don't think so. I mean, there are a lot of good fights to be made to put on the card without doing like the team approach. So I'm not sure that we'll have the two Brit promoters putting fights again, because we have a lot of fights that we've offered to them to go on the card, like Janabek against this English fighter, Nico Ali. So, I mean, what will be on the undercard is really under discussion.
My last one for you, Bob. What's the plan for the winner of the Vasily Lomachenko-George Kambosos fight?
They're going to celebrate winning the title, and then they'll figure out what they want to do next. I mean, If Kambosos wins, he will have a different route than Lomachenko, who's nearing the end of his career. But again, I don't like to jump ahead. There is no reason to jump ahead. Why would I plan fights for Kambosos, who we co-promote, or Lomachenko, who we completely promote, when we don't know who's going to win the fight? Let's see. Give them enjoy the fight. I'm looking forward to going to Perth, which is supposed to be a beautiful place for that fight. And that'll be like the week before the Fury-Usyk fight. So I'll be doing a lot of traveling, and we'll figure it out. But the idea of if he wins, who's he's going to fight, that talk is really non-productive.
Bob, as always, I don't know how you do it at this age. It's really a great example you're setting for everyone to be active at this age. Always appreciate the time. Always happy to talk to you. Bob, thank you.
Thank you. Good talking to you.